listen to fall to the floor.
Back to another pen talk. Today we're going to look at a pen that you can buy, not a vintage pen. I bought it because it said it was celluloid, and it looks pretty good. You could probably recognize the logo, which is also on the clip. So this is a Jinhao. It's nicely made. It was reasonably priced. I got it on Amazon, so shipping was a few days with Amazon Prime, not the length of time that you usually get ordering these from China. You know, it has some minor markings on the clip, just that it's a Jinhao, but no model number. We got nice sunlight coming in, so hopefully that shows off this very nice yellow translucent celluloid material. Again, I don't know whether celluloid is being used here as a trademark kind of, indicative, because I don't think this is actual celluloid, but it's probably an acrylic. So just for comparison, here's an Edison Menlo, which has a similar type of coloring scheme to it, but it's obvious from the comparison here that this celluloid, as they call it, or acrylic as I think it actually is certainly not as vibrant or interesting or have the depth that the Edison does, but of course the price differential was 20x, so that obviously is going to come across as a difference there. Unscrew cap. These metal threads are a little bit rough. They don't feel smooth. I usually put a little silicone grease when I find threads like that. The grease stays within the threads, so it really doesn't go anywhere. A nice section. It's black. I didn't expect the section to be the same material as like we find in the Edison. And then what I call a ubiquitous Jinhao nib here. It looks like it's in the fine variety. Called it 18 karat gold plate, which is kind of an interesting phrase, and the classic plastic feed. Cartridge converter is what you would expect, and you wouldn't want an eyedropper. There seems to be at least a lot of metal here down at the bottom section, and who knows what's up here at the cap on the barrel. So one of the things that I do is I flush my pens, every new pen that I get, regardless of the manufacturer. So I figure I'd show you guys that flushing. So this is a solution that I mix up. So I have two different types of strong detergents in here. I actually found a bottle of 409. And then I also found another bottle which is considered like a degreasing type of detergent, because there might be some machining oils left in here. There might be some fragments. You could take apart the nib and section and do it that way, but you could use the converter and draw up the solution, expel it, draw it up. As you can see, the converter fills pretty well, and expel it. I usually do this a minimum of 3 times. And it looks like the flow is pretty nice, so that's always good. And that's the other thing that this is nice for showing. But the other thing that I do is I use a bulb like this one here. This is that deflux bulb that came from Radio Shack, but a lot of pen people sell bulbs. I haven't found one that works as well as this. It fits basically on almost any type of section. As you can hear, it really, the flow you're going to get is a lot more aggressive with this than you'll get with just using the converter. And the other thing is this is also more indicative. You can actually see how that flow comes out. And I use this to judge what I expect to get out of the nib when I put ink in it. So that's what the soapy solution does. And then I'll do a similar type of rinse in just a water solution to remove any of the soap residue. So this is a seller on Amazon I think I bought my Pearl Jinhao from. You know, it comes wrapped in this bubble wrap, and then they give you a free kind of pen sleeve here. It's kind of like a velour. Yeah, it's nice. It's to add that to the pen, give you some place to keep it well. And as you can see, it just basically calls it a Lenexv. We'll show you that Amazon screen that shows the pen when I purchased it. Before we do a writing sample, I thought we'd take a little bit of a close-up look at this Jinhao. To me, one of the things that strikes me is the top emblem here and at the cap. The plating on it is not of a good quality. It has pitting in it, indicative of kind of lack of quality, and also the stamped engraving is washed out. So in theory, that's something that if they do any QA, that should have caught that. It is lined up well, so David would like that. The plating on the clip is a little bit better, but not perfect. You know, if you compare this to higher end pens, that the plating is flawless, and you know, in the vintage era they used gold filled, which didn't have any of the plating issues. I think this celluloid, as they call it, but acrylic as I think it is, I think that's actually okay. It would have been nice if it was a little bit more transparent, but that's just the nature of this particular batch. The barrel and end cap are okay. Nothing from a quality viewpoint that I find lacking there. I did put silicone grease on the thread, so now it turns on and off easily. It's still a little bit sticky. You know, again, it doesn't have that quality feel, but again, for $15 US, including shipping, there's not a lot you're going to get out of it. I think this section is done well, as I mentioned earlier. So I guess the real thing now is let's compare it with some other pens, and then we'll put nib to paper. Here's a comparison with Jinhao that I think is better quality, and also I enjoy the look of this pen, which I did a video on a few months ago. Here's an X450, just to compare size. Again, a pen that people might own. And this also has a similar type of issue with the gold plating, if I'm assuming if it's gold plating. For size comparison, here's a Pilot 78G and a Lamy Safari. Both of these Jinhaos post very high, and probably not a good idea from a balance viewpoint. The 450 posts a little bit deeper. The 78G is so light, doesn't really matter whether the cap is on or off, and the Lamy Safari. More interesting when you take a look at the Nibs and Sections. These two Jinhaos basically have that ubiquitous Jinhao nib that I've talked about before. It's in the 599s. It's in a lot of their pens. The section is kind of similar, but you know, I kind of like the one here on the Tiger's Eye pen. It's a little bit concave, which I think is nice on the fingers. This one's more straight on the Pearl one. The nib on the X450 is just gargantuan. It looks like a number 6. Has an interesting section with some cutouts in it, kind of replicating a little bit of what the Safari tries to do with its contoured section. And is you can see the 78G is pretty much a similar type of nib as to the original Jinhaos. So that's, you know, an interesting correlation, because each of these have different nibs, different sections, well, except these two have the same nib, but in the low end, you get, I think, almost a lot more variety than you get on some of the higher end pens, which tend to not be as creative or stretching the boundaries of what might be considered a writing instrument. This pen does fit nicely in the hand. The section is a little on the small side. We'll give you those dimensions. You know, based on my feel, I'd say it's about 8 to 9 millimeters at its narrowest section, which is about as small as I can deal with my hands. It fits fine, and it doesn't feel weighty at all. But if you try to post it, it posts very high, and a little bit securely, but definitely back weights it, but it is doable. It's better than I expected from the weight measurements, but I certainly would probably write with this pen unposted. The Nimbus Smooth, this is Fabriano paper, which has a little bit of texture to the surface. It's not smooth like Clairefontaine or Rhodia. And this is actually a fairly wet nib. This is the wettest Jinhao I've ever used. And this is Noodler's Heart of Darkness, which I love. The ink is a permanent black ink. It works on multiple papers. It works good on cheap paper as well as expensive paper. It's a very deep dark black, which is what you want. This is the ink that I use when I'm signing checks or other legal documents, and I want to ensure that nothing will ever happen to what I've written down there. So overall, I mean, if you like the way this pen looks and you like Jinhao's, or you want to get your first Jinhao, I certainly would put this in the running for that. I didn't do anything to this nib to get it to write the way that it writes. I've used it for terrible writing. I've used it for a couple days now, and the nib is so wet, even with this ink on poor paper, it tends to feather and bleed through. So unlike my other Jinhaos, as I mentioned, which are fairly dry, this is a wet writer. Those of you that like wet writers would enjoy this one. I've seen other reviews that talk about Jinhaos being wet, so this is the first one I've experienced. So hopefully you've enjoyed this look at a pen that you can buy. Thank you for watching. May you have many great writing experiences, explore them, enjoy life, all that it has to offer. Till later, bye.